Welcome back to America's Now from the largest technology event in Latin America.
Bom dia and welcome everyone. How's it going so far this morning?
I moderated a panel about how technology is reshaping trade, migration, and relations among countries. And I invited Portugal's Secretary of State for Internationalization, Bernardo Ivo Cruz.
This is my first time in Brazil, my first time in Rio, obviously.
And Canada's Chief Trade Commissioner, Sara Wilshaw, to talk about how trade rebounded after the pandemic.
So Sara, talk to us about Canada's trade priorities right now in a post-COVID world. How are you viewing the landscape? It has birthed kind of this uncertain economic global economy. Everything has changed. COVID brought so much disruption. Huge change and shift in patterns of trade, a big drop-off in trade, and then a rise in protectionism. So there's a lot of headwinds there to deal with. As we come out of COVID, we've seen a massive recovery, which is really positive. However, people are still hesitant. There's still a lot of, like you think about semiconductors and the chips and challenges in getting a hold of materials. Companies I'm talking to now are looking at, having materials on hand for longer periods than they would have never thought of before. So it's more the just in case than just in time that we used to operate on, trying to shorten some of those supply chains. Now you're looking at how do you build resilience? How do you de-risk some of the ways of doing business that we used to be engaged in before? And so for all of those, like as a government, you're trying to think through how do you support businesses through that? That's just one element. There's also this enormous climate change question out there, challenges. We've got to move people to net zero much faster. We've got to help with transition. Companies are very focused on ESG, and I'm talking, in the E side of that, as well as governance and now the social. A lot of folks around here talking about social impact. So we're looking at all of those things. But from a Canadian government, how do we work through some of these things? So on the climate side, how to help incentivize net zero in the transition, how to build climate technologies and socialize them and bring them out to the world. What have we got in terms of assets in Canada? Huge assets in critical minerals, right? Incredible centers of innovation who are bringing these new technologies out to the world. Great partnerships. We have a wonderful, universities, research centers, institutions who are coming up with this, entrepreneurs. So, but it's about connecting this globally as well. And that's the other role for the government, is to think about the frameworks that will help connect all of those pieces together and help solve the really big problems that we are going to face and are facing together.
So when it comes to bouncing back from the pandemic, many countries relied on technology and innovation. But the general instinct was to turn to global markets and aggressively circulate the world.
Somebody called it revenge travel. I think this is everybody wanting to get back out in the world all at the same time. And look around here, at Web Summit Rio, we have, I think Patty said last night, 100 countries represented here. We've got Canadians here in force. My team said something 35, 40, different Canadian companies here with representatives. So definitely people are looking to get out there. We were just in Asia. I went to the Philippines, and then I was in Singapore. In Singapore, Minister of International Trade, Mary Ng, so this is a Canadian minister, took one of the first kind of Team Canada trade missions again. So this is huge. We had hundreds of people in Singapore from all kinds of sectors, from the universities, from business, big business, tiny little startups, trying to figure out how to build those connective tissues again and how we can support them. So we've got through Canada, one of the big strategies I should have mentioned earlier is that we've launched a new Indo-Pacific strategy from Canada. So, And this isn't because, we think that we shouldn't be, so close to the United States. Obviously, Canada and the U.S. have a very privileged and very special partnership, being neighbors. And we do a huge amount of business with the United States, but it's recognizing the growth in Asia, the growth in other markets, the need to diversify. That's part of why we're here as well. But in the Indo-Pacific strategy that Canada launched, part of it was doing these big trade missions and really helping and create the systems and the foundations that will help Canadian businesses to go global, which is what my organization does in the Trade Commissioner Service.
And as technology makes things easier and faster when it comes to international trade, connecting is also key, especially while trying to make distances shorter between Latin America and Europe.
When you look around, from Europe, from Portugal, the connection to Brazil and Latin America is obvious. But even from Europe, there's very few places in the world where we have such a connection. The way that we look at things, the role that we expect and understand for the international community to take, the role of the state and the role of businesses, it's very similar. So it strikes me very bizarre and a bit sad even that Europe and Latin America have been apart for so long. And Europe and Mercosur have been even apart for so long. We are negotiating, the European Union negotiating trade deals with Mercosur, with Chile and Mexico. We need those trade deals because they improve the quality and the business quality and relation. But we should not make the mistake of thinking that the alpha and the omega of the relation between Europe and Latin America is trade deals. It's much more than that. Trade deals help. They are important. We want them. But we need to make sure that the connection, the historical connection, and the way that we look at the world becomes again central in our relation.
I want to ask you about China's reopening up post-pandemic, sending the message that it's back open for business, inviting other countries to invest there, and inviting their companies as well. What can you tell us about Portuguese and Chinese ties right now?
China is an important member of the international community. It will be an important member of the international community, has been an important member of the international community. And the way that Portugal looks at the world, we think that diplomacy and multilateralism are the key elements for a better and a more prosperous world. So knowing who we are, knowing where we stand, knowing that we have this long tradition of relations with China, we are comfortable in our dual role as an European, Western democracy, NATO member state, but also having this link and this connection with China.
And really quickly, a 30-second pitch to businesses that are looking to come to Canada. What do you have to offer? Oh my goodness, what don't we have to offer? Look, we have all the tech and the talent. We have all of the connections. We have FTAs with 15 other or groups, I should say, because it includes sometimes like CETA, which is all of the European countries. So 1.5 billion people. And as I mentioned, the R&D centers, the universities, I mean, just some of the best talent and great government programs and supports at all levels. Talk to us a little bit about your outlook, Portugal's outlook for the rest of the year and the EU outlook as well.
So if you look at Portugal as the gateway to Europe and the Portuguese-speaking world, you see that we are in a very cozy position to link North America to Europe, Europe to North America, everybody else to everywhere else. So we are moving well. Of course, we wish we could be doing better, but due the circumstances and the international forecast, particularly what we were expecting at the end of 2022, we are better than we expected. We need to make sure that those figures translate in the quality of life of the Portuguese people.
Thank you so much for
Thank you very much. Thank you so much.